Okay, welcome back to the Passive Income Podcast, another political edition. The title of this live stream is Donald Trump Can't Be Serious. Can he? And we are talking about Donald Trump. What initially started as a joke way back in however long ago that was when Justin Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago. And then after the weekend, it came out that at the table during dinner that Trump said suggested that Canada should become the 51st state. And so, we all took it in stride and thought it was a joke back then. It was sort of like, okay, funny, that's sure, whatever. But now it's to the point of like, Donald Trump has been continuously trolling, not just Canada, but Greenland and Panama as well now. But obviously, we're going to focus primarily on Canada. Um, Sammy, I guess thoughts, reactions, y anything between then and now, what have you been thinking? Because I think you were in the same positions, like, okay, at the beginning, this is a joke, it's funny, but now, like, where are we now?
Well, I think that's the question, Dave, that a lot of people are asking themselves at this moment. Just the fact that you mentioned the word trolling, I understand it, but this is not a child's game at this stage in the game. This is not a matter of who's trolling who or who's doing what. That's kids play.
Yeah,
We're talking here now about uh, uh, economic pressure to comply with another nation, and which goes far beyond trolling on the internet.
yeah.
Uh, although
International politics are at stake now. This isn't just
he's used that as a vehicle. Uh, so does he have uh, Canadians' attention for good or for bad? Yes, he does.
yeah,
And
definitely.
I think I think we better start using our words carefully and choosing our actions even more so as a result of a growingly hostile relationship between these two countries.
Well, I don't think it's ever gonna get that hostile, like, even in that, press conference yesterday, I think it was yesterday, not the day before, where a reporter was asking Trump about, military power, and Trump said that, yeah, it could be possible in Greenland or Panama, but when it comes to Canada, he's like, "No, no, no, it would be economic force that they would use." Um,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think I don't know if they know how much economic force Canada has right back at them though, right? Like, Doug Ford's already threatened to cut off the power to Michigan and Northern New York State, like, do you like electricity? Do you like to be able to turn your lights on? So, I mean, and I've said this before too, and you've heard me say it, man. If Doug Ford and Danielle Smith were running this country, that would be a whole different ball game.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I like Danielle Smith a lot. She makes a lot of sense. Um, but Mr. Ford, I have to say, is out of all of our premiers, and I know it's because of the role that he has on this committee, but he is really showing leadership. And God bless Doug Ford. He should be taken because there's a lot of people in this country who would vote for that man.
Yeah, as Prime Minister of Canada for sure. I think probably a lot of people would vote for Danielle Smith as Prime Minister as well. And that's what that's kind of my point. If those two were running the country, Trump wouldn't know what hit him. He would suddenly be like, "Oh, I was used to dealing with real estate in New York. I can't handle this. I can't handle these two people."
Yeah, it is. You know, it's sure it's peaceful. There's hurt feelings, and there's uh, these ideas of friend betrayal that are flying around in the Canadian realm. I speak for me and just people that
Yeah.
uh, that I know. Um, but what happens when it's not when it turns hostile? I mean, Donald Trump does not like the word no,
Yeah.
right? And what he can acquire legitimately, he will take. And this is a pattern of behavior that's been
Well
seen and
established.
documented, and you know, so this idea that it's he really doesn't like Trudeau, and this is his way of you know uh, creating turmoil, trying to change government regime. This stuff, a government regime was already going to change long before any notion of 25% tariffs. We all know that he can't take credit for Trudeau stepping down, which he's trying to do.
Yeah.
Trying
There was
to
gonna be an election in Canada in 2025 regardless, one way or another, whether it's in prior to a few days ago, it could have been as early as March. Now it may be as early as June, but by October, there's an election. And
Yeah, I mean, he was asked to respond to Pierre Poilievre's comments at that same press conference that you're talking about, and he just shrugged it right off. He just, does not matter who's in charge. It
yeah,
doesn't matter whether it's Polyev, Kevin O'Leary. If he had his way, I'm sure that if he would have stuck it out in the last conservative process, he might be in that chair,
right.
right? So, Kevin, if you're listening, I love you, man, but
Well, I'll
you
make sure
quit.
to send them the
You
link.
you quit too. Remember, brother,
Yeah,
Mister Wonderful. You remember that you quit in the conservative leadership uh, process. You started. You were a front runner, and you quit. So I'm not saying I'm pro Trudeau, and certainly not saying that. But it's
right.
easy to point the finger at the fallen leader.
Yeah,
Uh, these problems. Well, our fallen leader is responsible for every problem in this country for the past almost decade. So, without being too hard on the guy, I think that's and you and I had a discussion, Dave, about the Canadian media today. Every person on the camera getting up and talking about Trudeau and his exit to this to his position, which is not over yet, as we all know. But it's all with this sympathetic lens and this sympathetic tone,
yeah.
and that bothers me, because in his resignation intent to resign speech, there is no taking responsibility for anything.
None whatsoever.
He's talking about he can't get what he needs done because of the opposition. Well, that's a democracy, buddy.
Yeah,
And you're going to have opposition to stupid decisions,
yeah.
right? And
And blaming
thank
the
God.
internal fighting in the Liberal Party as well. He didn't take responsibility for anything in that resignation speech.
Yeah, I think that just to surmise with your first question there, if anything good has come out of any of this, it's like I've never seen in my lifetime, except for maybe over hockey, I've never seen Canadians pissed off,
Yeah,
right? And it's time. It's time, people. It's time to get pissed off, right? Like the rest of the world,
yeah.
right? And maybe that's part of the strategy behind Donald Trump, is getting Canada moving a little bit.
Hey, great to
But
see you here.
anyway,
Thanks for joining the chat. You have to take responsibility. So that's a comment coming from X. Um, I'm going to actually pull up. I don't know if you saw this, but so yesterday after Trump's um, whatever he said yesterday, and Justin Trudeau decided he was going to grow a set the day after he steps down or intends to resign. And so the can you see that there on the screen?
yep.
So JT says there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States. Workers and communities in both our countries benefit from being each other's biggest trading and security partner. Now Elon is trolling JT as well, so it's not just Donald. Girl, you're not the governor of Canada anymore, so it doesn't matter what you say. What are
Wow.
your thoughts on that one, Sammy?
There's so little respect for that man. Uh, you better take that down, Dave, before you get in trouble again.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I can share that. There's no media or copyright ban on that. That's just free speech on
You
X.
know, someone told me once that as a leader, when you walk into the room, everyone should you know
Yeah,
respect you and like you and all this stuff, but they should pucker just a little bit every time you walk in the room. You are the boss. You are the one who's in charge. And no one cares if this man enters their
yeah,
room.
yeah. He did. Justin has commanded zero, like no amount of respect at all. Maybe a little bit in the beginning, like going back to when he first got elected in 2015, when it looked like okay, Canada's turning a corner from this and that and going in this direction. But any modicum of dignity or respect that he had has just been dwindled right away over the last 10 years, right? This almost like a lost decade for Canada.
Yeah, and kudos to you played something earlier there, Dave, that I hadn't had a chance to get into. But I'm not surprised that it was good. Kudos to Elizabeth May
Oh, yeah.
for really making an articulate point, even though she was probably three sheets to
I
the
I
wind when
I couldn't tell if she was sober. I can't tell anymore if she's
it
sober or
doesn't.
girl. It's like,
Who cares, right?
yeah.
But I don't know if you get in trouble for pulling that up.
Yeah, I'm not gonna play that clip because I don't wanna get demonetized again like I did on the last one, but, basically, in a nutshell, um, Elizabeth May is up there saying, "Have I got a deal for you?" Talking to the 3 governors of California, Oregon, and Washington State. Say, "Have I got a deal for you? Why don't you join Canada and become the 11th, 12th, and 13th province?" So, and she did kinda make a decent point. It's like, "Hey, you get free healthcare right away." That's a selling point to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean it's not a game anymore. We need some of our. I don't want to give a Miss May too much credit, but it's time for our political heavyweights to really start coming out, and they are out there, and they've
Yeah.
been absent. They have not been by the leader of the Liberal Party's side at all. In fact, they were pushed away. So I don't blame them, right? But if all things aside, it's time for some of our most powerful uh, people from the past and present to really start fighting back.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, it's time for maybe a friend on the schoolyard to step in, and we
Yeah.
don't have the
Where's
support. We don't have
Australia? Where's Britain? Where's Germany? Where's France? Nobody's saying a damn thing. Like,
we don't have
you
the
would think
support of anyone, right? Everyone just keeping their mouth shut,
because nobody
right?
wants to tick off the US, right? Like, Germany, Japan, and Italy, like, anybody in the G7 or, like I said, Australia and some of the others, like, nobody wants to tick off, the US, so they're just keeping quiet, and it's like Canada's over here saying, "Hey, like, we're being bullied by the bully on the schoolyard," and but
And I think where it particularly hurts, when you've been there for someone and you hope they
yeah,
remember that day, right? Don't you can fact check me here. May be wrong, but outside of Iraq and Vietnam, I believe Canada was there beside the United States in every war they pulled us into.
yeah,
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 right.
Afghanistan,
Thousands, like Afghanistan. What was it? Something like 5,300
yeah.
Canadians
Okay,
fighting for
I hear what you're
Americans.
saying. I hear what you're saying about standing by each other's side, and a prime example of that. is while it's an attack going back to 9/11. Just think about Gander, Newfoundland on September 11th, 2001. Like Canada was there for you. Gander, Newfoundland took in what was it, 160 or 180 planes or something like that, and housed
Yeah.
and fed tens of thousands of people for like what was it, 2 weeks or something? I forget all the exact details of the story. I haven't re-listened to it recently, but you know, talk about a friend being there for you. And here we
Yeah.
are, 20 some short years later, 25 short years later.
And
And
what is, and maybe I'm naive, and greater. Maybe if you want to comment on this, I'm not sure, but on one hand, I can't fill one hand with the number of things the United States has done for Canada. There's trade,
yeah,
and I know, like, what, but what has the United
the
States
trade goes
ever?
both ways though, and that's what you've heard me say this so many times too. When Canada and the US get into a trade war, nobody wins. Nobody wins. There's
Yeah,
no
this
winner when Canada and the US get into a trade war. It doesn't it hurts both sides. Nobody wins.
this is a classic wolf in sheep's clothing kind of trick. Americans as individuals, most wonderful people in the world, but I'm going to say, where are the Americans right now? I mean, this isn't what he ran for and won an
Yeah, this
election
was
on.
definitely not on his platform. His platform, well, I didn't know that "Make America Again" meant, annexing and taking over Canada.
Yeah. Well, I watched an interesting program. One perspective was likening the MAGA movement to more ominous, dangerous movements of the past. And I won't glorify their existence by saying
Yeah.
who they are. But branding a movement with a title like MAGA, it's all becoming very clear to a lot of people what MAGA actually means. I don't profess to be an expert on this. I just watch and read as much as the next guy. But overall, that feeling of being deceived by a friend is permeating through at least 83% of Canadians. I think that last Angus poll was 13% of Canadians agree with the possibility of looking at a partnership, that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
At a possibility
No
of
one wants
looking
to
at, like,
separate.
not, "Yes, we wanna sign up," we wanna look at the possibility of potentially, maybe, right? Like, all these, definer words in there, and then there's 83% of Canadians that are just saying, "No, no, we don't wanna be part of the
Yeah.
US." And actually, that's actually a good segue into let's talk about Maxime Maxime Bernier for a second. See earlier today, I'm not sure if you had a chance to read it or not.
Yeah, I read it. The Separatist. Yeah.
Um,
That always amazed me how he can go from separatist to not.
yeah, so this was posted. I'm not sure if this was posted earlier yesterday by Maxime Bernier, who is the leader of what is his party called? They have 0 seats in parliament, and they're not gonna win any seats. They're a far right-wing party as far as I understand.
Liberty.
Is it called the People's Party
Yeah,
of Canada, PPC?
yeah, I think it is.
So Maxime Bernier, the leader of that party, posted this at some point either earlier today or yesterday. It's clearly in the U.S. interest to do so since they have ultimately humiliated in most of their foreign interventions from Vietnam to Afghanistan. Things are going badly in Ukraine. Sanctions against Russia have backfired. The BRICS now compromises half the world's population and a huge chunk of its resources and economy. And a new multipolar set of international relations is gradually replacing the one based on American homogeny. Sorry. It's also in the Americans' interest to adapt to this new geopolitical situation and help it evolve peacefully rather than diluting themselves. They will always be the top dog. Their government is close to bankruptcy with a national debt that is spinning out of control. The status of the dollar as the world's reserve currency, which allowed them to print trillions of dollars, export their inflation, and make the rest of the world pay for their empire, is now threatened as emerging countries are rapidly de-dollarizing. All this is to say that it is extremely disappointing and concerning to now see Mr. Trump acting like a typical arrogant American imperialist with his increasingly aggressive and outrageous statements about annexing Canada and Greenland and the Panama Canal, again, under the pretext of protecting the free world.
Well said.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to unpack there. I mean, okay, so the American debt, the spiraling out of control, the exporting inflation, and yeah, that right away makes you go, okay, why does Trump really want Canada? And the real reason is the natural resources, obviously, right? It's like, oh, and then again, yesterday in that press conference, Trump was like, we don't need Canada's oil. We don't need Canada's dairy, which they don't need our dairy. But it's like, we don't need Canada's electricity. We don't need Canada's lumber. And it's like, and every time he's saying this, I'm thinking in my mind, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You know, those pipelines are already built. Is it? I'm not sure which one it is that goes across the northern U.S. from Alberta, and then it also does supply Ontario and Quebec, but it also is supplying those northern U.S. states. The electricity, obviously, from Ontario and Quebec that provides power to Michigan, New York State, Vermont. Like, yeah, you need these things, and the trade goes back and forth. And you've also heard me say this before too. You know, Trump keeps calling it a subsidy. No, the United States is not subsidizing Canada. The United States has a trade deficit with Canada. That simply means Canadian businesses sell more to American businesses than American businesses sell to Canadian businesses. And in the past, it's been the other way around. Canada has had a trade deficit with the US. There's an it's a pendulum or an equilibrium back and forth. And right now it just happens to be that Canada has the upper hand in trade. And that's not always the case. But okay, sure, Canada is lacking when it comes to NATO and contributing the 2% of GDP to NATO. But other than that, there's no argument that the US does not subsidize Canada in any way whatsoever. It's simply, Trump is using the incorrect terminology on purpose because I'm sure he knows he's got to know the difference between a subsidy and a trade deficit. He he has to. There's no way he can't know that. And he's using this incorrect terminology on purpose to, I don't know, to try to fool the American people. But the real going back to sort of, I got on a little bit of a rant there. I'm sorry that why does Trump really want Canada? And the answer is, Canada is the richest country in the world with natural resources. Canada has tons of forest. We have got the oil. I heard the other day that we have like the largest gold reserve that's in the ground. And it's like, well, okay, well, that's all well and good, but do you know how long it takes to get a mine operational in Canada? The newest mine that has come online in Canada was approved by the Harper government. So it's like 15 years. I have a comment here coming from Darren on YouTube.
Hey, Darren.
I think Canada isn't a good position. I think Trump is losing. I think Trump will finally lose within a year or two. His own people will turn on him. Well, and that's highly possible. I was already reading today about the possibility of impeachment. I'm like, geez, the guy hasn't even been sworn in yet, and people are talking about impeaching him for the third time. Like, come on. Oh, so
can't Joe Biden do anything about this? Isn't he the actual president?
Yeah, for another 2 weeks or just under 2 weeks. It's
Yeah.
okay, and there's another.
Canadians. Go ahead.
I was just going to say because okay, you're talking about Joe Biden still being the president. So right now they've got a lame duck president in Joe Biden. We've got a lame duck prime minister in Justin Trudeau. But I know you've heard me say this so many times before, and this happens every 4 years with the Americans. You elect your new leader in November, and then you have a lame duck for 2.5 months that's doing nothing because it's not that his hands are tied. It's just that it's like the people have now turned to the president elect. And the point I've made is like we have an election in Canada, and the new leader, the new prime minister is sworn in like within usually about 3 or 4 days, right? Like you have an election on a Tuesday and he's sworn in on Friday or the following Monday at the latest. It's like I don't ever recall it being over a week. So
I
now,
guess
again, going back to Trudeau being a lame duck prime minister right now, this is a little unprecedented in Canadian history. I don't ever recall a situation like this, but um, sorry, go ahead. I've been ranting.
there's this notion flying around that, remember the leaders of political parties. One is never supposed to vote for the person leading the party. They're supposed to vote for the policies and the direction of the party, and then all the leaders doing is taking them through that period of time. So it's long been established that acquiring Canada is part of the long-term American strategy.
Manifest destiny.
It always has been. I heard today that this is actually not the first time this has even come up in the last 50 years. So the nature in which it's come up has struck a chord, certainly this time. And it leaves a lot of Canadians saying, coming back again, not looking at the party, but now looking directly at Trump, right? And what you want to say to a man like this is, why would I want to join your team again? I mean, you're painting this picture that I don't like anyway. So even if it is puncture proof and solid, and it could be of benefit.
Yeah, sure. The lower taxes look great and the stronger
Yeah,
dollar looks great, but okay, sell me on something else because
I'd rather be broke and poor and be Canadian. I've always been broke and poor and been Canadian.
yeah. So what's the difference now?
So take your spiel and shove it up your ass, because no matter how attractive it is, it won't beat how I feel about this country.
Another great comment here from Grader, still with us on X. Thank you so much for being here, Grader. Any thoughts on Kevin O'Leary talking with Trump on merging economies? Yeah, we were talking about this the other day. I think before even we knew that O'Leary had met with Trump, the last live stream we did, Sammy, on the day Justin Trudeau resigned. And I like O'Leary's idea of forming a economic union similar to the EU. And my thought on it is to not just be Canada and the US or Canada, US, Mexico, but all of the countries in North America, similar to all 54, I think it's 54 countries in Europe that are in the EU. So including your Central America and the, according to GeoGuessr, all of the Caribbean islands are part of North America as well. So I'm not going to name them all off like I did the other day, Sammy. I think that wore on you a little bit when I was naming 15 or 20 countries.
Let's not forget, speaking of the Caribbean countries, Canada's tried to acquire Jamaica twice in our lifetime.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Jamaica, and actually was it Trinidad and Tobago in the late 70s that either we wanted them or they wanted to be part of us or something? Was it? I think it was Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, I think so. I think we were talking about that, but at this time, it's like joining that team. It's like leaving your NHL playoff.
Oh, Turks and Caicos. That's right. It was Turks and Caicos. He had a typo, then he corrected his typo. Turks and Caicos. That's right. It was Turks and Caicos back in the late 70s. Sorry, Sammy, I interrupted.
Yeah, I like the idea I think that's the way it always should have been anyway. But I don't believe. I think it should be just a straight bilateral deal. I don't want Mexico involved. I don't want any other country involved. This is about Canada being Canada and the United States. Well, it already is. It's certainly the largest
Economy.
joint economy in the world. But yeah, I mean, just an economic border of any kind is not good for either country.
No, honestly, what it does is holds up trade. Like you're sitting at the border waiting to get across. Think about all those trucks, those tractor trailers sitting there with, loaded down with 40,000 pounds of goods, and they're just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for clearance and getting called into customs. And I mean, that's, I'm sure, a whole other process, not just like a family of four driving across in an SUV or minivan, but a truck driver, trying to clear customs with a lot. Well, okay, a lot of things are pre-cleared through the brokers and the customs agents, the customs brokers. But at the same time, you're still actually physically at the border, and that is holding up the trade. So I could definitely see how eliminating the line in that sense would help both countries for sure. And there are um, lanes at the borders that are designated for the trucks, and they do move them through as quickly as they can. But at the same time, is it quick
I
enough?
think if you, I think we're dangerously close to a NATO statement at this moment. Like very, very close. I mean, Canada's a NATO country. The United States is a NATO country, and Greenland, owned by
Denmark,
Denmark,
yeah,
it is a founding NATO member. I mean, where is NATO?
yeah,
Like it's laughable, and who can see this? China, Russia, all your normal opponents. They're
yeah.
seeing the strength of NATO right now, which is nothing. Otherwise, they would have said there would have been a position on this.
What position can NATO take?
You can take
Be
one.
that guy, be that bully or the person in the
An
schoolyard that stands up to the bully.
attack on one is an attack on all.
Right. So that means if the US were
Yeah,
to at Greenland, they're attacking themselves.
yeah. It means war.
It means
It means war.
yeah.
If United States attacks Greenland, that means potential war with Canada. So Trump has us either way.
Yeah.
How you like that, babies? Sleep
Well, I
well.
don't. Yeah.
He has us either way. He does something to Greenland, right? Triggers a NATO response, right? Canada gets involved. Canada gets invaded. It's that close.
I just don't even see how it works, like the logistics of it, because like half of NATO is the US Army and the rest of NATO is made up with all the other countries. So is it now like an American Civil War? Like because you've got NATO fighting US NATO troops on one side fighting US troops on the other side?
Well, you have Denmark defending Greenland, right? And then alliances build on either side, but ultimately doing totally away with NATO. Doesn't matter.
Ultimately, okay, that's actually a great point. You build alliances on either side. So yeah, you're going to get, Germany, UK, France, Italy.
No, you're going to have China and Russia
No,
supporting.
that was my next point. That was my
Yeah,
next
yeah.
point. So you get say all of those European countries side with Denmark, which they probably would, and then all of a sudden China and Russia are like licking their lips and chomping at the bit, saying, "Oh,
Well,
the world's ours for the taking."
yeah, we'll come in. Don't worry, Denmark, Greenland, we'll help you. but you will pay a heavy,
premium.
heavy price for that help, and it's called our flag,
Yeah.
right?
And this is also at a time when that uh what's it called? The Northwest Passage, the
Yeah, it's
shipping
opening
lane
up.
that's
It's
opening
open.
up, and China and Russia want that just as much as the US do. And guess who would another reason the US wants Canada. Guess who owns the Northwest Passage? Well, Canada does by rights. Sure,
Well,
they're
by
all
by our
arguing.
ac- by our account,
Yeah, by our account, they're all arguing that it's international waters, blah blah blah. Hey, if all of a sudden the US Canada did become part of the US, do you think the US would still call it international waters, or would it suddenly be US waters? And we both know the answer to that question, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah. But it is interesting though how he's using both uh, Greenland and Canada. I mean, he does something. Uh, yeah, I mean, we're involved. We're into this as opponents of the United States in many other ways than 25% tariffs. It's much more ominous.
right, right.
So,
Okay, I want to.
there ain't no draft no more. Mm.
Well, I think we're way too old to be drafted anyway. I don't think they'd want us. Like you guys are old and slow. Um, Actually, one good thing that has come out of all of Donald Trump's rhetoric is the leaders of all of the Canadian parties. Yesterday, they all responded, um, like unanimously together, meaning even like Jagmeet Singh said, "No, we don't want to be part of the U.S." Pierre Poilievre said, "No." Justin Trudeau, as I read that earlier post, said there isn't a snowball's chance in hell. Um, oh yeah, we haven't even gotten to this yet. U.S. waters, yep, just like the Gulf of America. Yeah. That made me lose my train of thought. You want to jump in there, Sammy? You must have something to say.
Well, it would certainly be American, and they have. Uh, like I said, it's like a friend. It's like for the first day of your life, you're looking at your best friend through a slightly different lens, and they might be asking you why you're feeling the way you are, why you seem a certain way, but you, like most
Yeah. What's
Canadians,
got
just
you down?
yeah, exactly, just looking at them a bit differently. Um, not the people, but certainly the party.
Right. So sorry, going back to my thought. What are your thoughts there on like all the um, Canadian political leaders unanimously rejecting Trump's bid to annex Canada? Like it was the first time, possibly in my lifetime, I've ever seen all five parties agree on anything.
Well, so it has to come to that, does it? And isn't that ridiculous? Like it has to come with losing our country for
That's
everyone
that's
to.
the only thing they can agree on is that they don't wanna
It
lose
is
their
it
country,
it it
our
is
country.
possible. It is possible. Yeah, it's a if okay, let's say you have four people in a room, and one person just to have, and you don't like the other people at all, but with uh, before noon, between the four of you, you could agree on something, right? There
Hopefully.
would be there would be things that you could find to agree upon. We wouldn't automatically default to oppose every single thing. Can you imagine? It's like being into like my last relationship, right? It's just like imagine you can just never ever be right. And uh, in Canada, that's kind of what it is. You could have a policy totally, uh, you know,
Perfect.
mint. Yeah, perfect. And it would get opposed.
By someone.
Yeah,
Somebody
by
somewhere.
someone. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so to pose back the original question, the title of the live stream, Trump can't be serious. Can he?
Yeah. Well, that's the question. Headlines: Trump unites Canada, basically.
Against him. Trump unites Canada against Trump.
Yeah. This was all a big favor to Trudeau.
Yeah, exactly. Trudeau's on his way out. He's like, I unified Canadians. All political parties now agree. We don't want to be part of the United States. Wow.
Yeah, and now our very own, I know we've brought him up on before, our very own Jordan Peterson is taking the partial blame for the Tommy Robinson issue in the UK. Like,
right.
Specifically cited as someone who is meddling in again, a geopolitical meddling is what he's been accused of.
There's like potentially a European or EU, European Union investigation into Elon Musk into foreign interference. And it's just like, okay, well, if what's going on over there and Elon is making a post on X, if that's considered foreign interference, then
well,
you might have bigger problems.
Yeah, I mean, I watched an interview today, Jordan Peterson and Tommy Robinson, and I learned a little bit more. It is a absolute canyon, right?
I
I've
still
just
don't know enough
scratched
about it.
Let us know in the comments if you're up on that, because
we're both gonna study up on that topic and come back on the next live stream and discuss what is going on in the UK.
Well, it's put, at worst case, and maybe for our next podcast, before we, once we put some thought into this, I mean, there's some people at the very least, there's accusations of a major holy war.
A holy war brewing in the UK, which is going to spill over. It'll spill over into wherever else.
And it's already
spilled over into Canada. We talked about this in the last live stream with the immigration in Canada and the pro-Palestinian protesters all over the place waving Palestinian flags. Because, hey, guess what? Canada's a free country. You have the right to do that. You can wave whatever flag you want. But you can't be causing violence and burning down synagogues just because you don't like Jewish people. That's not okay.
Yeah, well, it's not okay. Neither is covering up the fact that thousands upon thousands of young Christian girls were gang raped by Pakistani Muslim Brits. Yeah. Right? And I'm talking thousands.
I know. And it was covered up by a lot of the authorities.
It was concealed. Because they didn't want the general public to be aware that there was a holy war taking place.
Yeah.
Right? And that is absolutely disgusting. Tony Robinson shed a light on this and now is in jail.
Yeah.
Right? I know he's done other things. I know he's not, he's a disturber, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so we got a potential holy war going on. So that's nice too, to add it to the
how take over Canada, Greenland, and Panama, and then it's like, oh, don't look, the UK is in an even more messed up situation than the rest of the world. Somehow, all of a sudden, so
just when the whole state of affairs starts to get really intriguing and really interesting, then it gets really depressing, right?
It can real fast.
A holy war is the worst kind of war. That's neighbor to neighbor,
mm-hmm.
person to. It is the most bloody war.
Well, wars have only ever been fought for
They,
two reasons. There's only ever been two reasons for war: land and religion. That's it.
yeah, holy war is
And people say, "Oh, but war is about oil." Well, where does oil come from? The land. So land and religion are the only two things in the history of mankind that war has ever, or the only two reasons that wars even exists is like, uh
sort of bring you down.
yeah, on that note,
Well, maybe we should. Maybe what we should do is we should really put some thought into this what we were just talking
you
about,
know what we
right?
can do is I can try to get some of my Brit UK friends to come on. It's a little difficult with the time change. They're 5 hours ahead of us, so like right now it's quarter after 11 in the evening at night. So it's usually something you.
Yeah, yeah. I have someone in mind.
Yeah, we could invite Jason too. We could get a few different people on here and get the perspectives of people in Britain. The problem is they might not be able to say anything because they'd be afraid of getting arrested for saying something on social media. That's the other
Yeah,
crazy part.
that's
They might be like, "Oh, I'd love to come on and speak my mind, but I can't because free speech is dead in the UK. Dead as a doornail." But yeah, that is going to be our topic for the next live stream once we on the Passive Income Podcast Political Edition. As always, the Passive Income Podcast political commentator, Sammy. You can follow Sam on X at Sam Rivendell. I don't have that linked in the description right now, but I'll definitely, while I tweet it out all the time, I tag you in lots of posts. So
you know,
give
you know,
Sammy a
you,
follow.
you know what I meant to mention to you, Dave, last night. You were on the road, and I was all like, I didn't mention it. I was in a restroom yesterday, and I saw a piece of turd in a urinal.
Oh, nice. That's a
Yeah.
good spot for it.
I didn't know whether whether it was disgusting or awesome. Right?
It's, I guess
with
at
that
least they
with
made it
that
into the
one,
bathroom.
how do you like that for a sign off?
At least they made it into the bathroom and not just on a
Yeah.
sidewalk in downtown Toronto or something.
No, no.
Okay, well, yeah, like Sammy said, on that on that note,
Turd in a
on that,
urinal.
if you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. If you're watching on X, I love you guys. Thanks for being here. We will be back again soon. Oh, it takes talent. Yes, it does. Thanks so much for being here, Greater. Thanks for all the comments. The chat is always the best when it's lively and we have people in the chat. So, um, like I said, thank you all so much for being here. We're going to be back again in a few days to talk about the situation in the UK because it is bad. Like I look at it and go, "Wow, Canada's in a really bad spot. The UK is in an even worse spot." It's like, wow.
You wait till I play something for you later in preparation for tomorrow. We can put it on tonight. You should
Yeah.
hear you should hear him rip Pierce Morgan. Thanks for being here, Grader.
Yeah. Thanks, Greater. Thank you.
All
All
right.
right.
See you in a minute, Lovey.
Okay. See ya.
Yeah. All right.